But I did want to ask you, and I talked about it
Yeah,
on my show. What's
sure.
up
Go
with
for it.
the violent turn against Rekieta?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a violent turn, but I think a lot of people. I know Nick has said everything's great with him, but it doesn't look like it to me, and I know other people feel that way. Um, I know whatever he's got going on in his life, is his issues, and everybody's got their own problems. God bless. I hope everybody gets their shit worked out. Whether it's me, whether it's you,
We'll see.
Nick, I want everybody to get their shit worked out.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people ain't saying that to you, but
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. But I don't know. It just seems,
it
and
it's
maybe I overstated it, but it seemed like you
yeah.
kind of made your career here on the line at least.
Hmm.
And I saw the Metal Gear Solid clip the other day. I've seen
Yeah.
some of your recent commentary, and this seems to have taken a really nasty turn against
Well,
him.
I guess I'll say it like this. I never meant it to be nasty, and certainly if Nick were to tell me, "Hey, man, I feel like those," because I made some before, and Nick's like, "Some of this is fucking hilarious." And he's texted me before about that. If he were to say right now, "This is way too much, dude. You're really," I feel like you're dogging me now, not just poking. I'd say I'd apologize to him, and I'd stop. I'd stop. And I realize, yeah, with the whole Metal Gear Solid thing, yeah, I kind of went far with that one, but I really want what's best for him, but I think there's also times if somebody does something goofy or they're, if they're stepping on a rake, I think it's okay to laugh at them, to argue I can't laugh at that person. I don't ever want to be in that position where you say you can't make fun of that person if they do something goofy or cringe. But for Nick's situation, I think those are issues, but I think really the whole thing he did where the John guy, I don't know if you heard that. Did you see that one? Or you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
and I
about?
was glad you
Yeah.
go ahead and bring up your points on that because I
Yeah.
got a few as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, like, and I get the idea that okay, this guy may have been fucking with him, so he's gonna fuck back, and I get that. Fine. If somebody comes at you and they're giving you shit, clap back at
Oh, you
them,
saw
take
what
care
I
of your
said
business.
then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I have no problem with you doing that. I have no problem coming at somebody like that. They come at you, you come right back. And yeah, I know, Chad, you're gonna joke about the way I said that. Fine, but I think there's something to be said, especially in for Nick and I. The idea you go to somebody and you speak to them in confidence. Okay. But I also feel there's a little bit more of confidence in that type of a matter, I think should be protected a little bit more. And I also argue you are an attorney and Nick's an attorney.
Yeah. I'm not. I
As of
wish I
now,
was.
like if you were to go look at Nick, it's like, was that guy going to take anything? If I talk to him about anything, would he keep that in confidence? Because if he gets mad at me, he could go out there and run his mouth. Where I wouldn't do that because I try to keep. I want to show people like, yes, what you tell me, I take. Until you tell me I can say it, will never get said again to another single soul. Even you, if you came to me and you DM me later, hey, I got to talk to you about something. I question, and you came to me and told me all kinds of shit. Until you tell me I can talk about it, or it has to come out through the course of something, I'm not telling a soul about it. And even if that's just a consultation, whatever it is, I take that to the grave. Like, and I take it, there's all kinds of secrets and shit I've gotten. I've been doing this 10 years that I will never tell another soul until I get permission. So I think that's critical. And for him to do that, I think is very much, and I think at this point, basically, I mean, if you Google this guy, you're like, I want to hire this guy as an attorney. You're like, fuck. If he gets mad at me and gets a couple in him, he's going to tell everybody about all my business. I just he's got to get right with himself, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what he needs to do, but I think he's got to get his shit sorted out a little bit.
So I take that and I understand what you're saying there. But
Yeah.
what would you say if I told you that John slash Captain Manning
Hmm.
had revealed that on Kiwi Farms, I don't know,
Hmm.
2 years ago almost, and that I read it and already
Hmm.
knew that story, and that Kiwi Farms had read it as well, and that's how they were able to deduce who John
I saw
was?
that part. Yeah. No, I saw that. I saw that, and I saw that there, and I think part of that is yes, this was already something people knew about, but I don't think a lot of people knew about that. I think there's also the issue of it might be out there, but I don't know if that's your place to really bring that up like that. if that person wasn't, then again, though, if you were in crisis, why would you share with the world that you were in crisis like that? That's a separate matter of people liking to overshare or people liking to share to get, to get noticed or power leveling and all that. I just don't think that's proper for someone who wants to be, holding themselves out in the position they're in. I don't think it's a proper way you do it. If you want to go after him for saying he's a, loser, lives by himself, you can make all kinds of allegations, being a broke deadbeat on Social Security and all that. You can make all that crap you want to, without also saying they're sitting there crying about trying to kill themselves and how that all worked out. Because not all of it was fully disclosed. And I think that what Nick did was expanded upon it much more than what was in that post. Because I've seen that post since then. And Nick talked about it a lot more. Yeah. And that's why, okay, great. He didn't breach too much confidence, but what he did breach was quite a bit. I mean, there's more to that than what Captain Manning wrote out, which, there's that. I mean, and I think
but it wasn't quite how it was portrayed, is all I'm saying, right? Like, it wasn't a full reveal. I guess he did expound upon it some. You're right there, but like the guy was already talking about it. The guy posting his thread like 20 times a day, and going back to stress on Rekieta and maybe he's not himself. And again, I won't comment on that. I don't, but I will say this. Having thousands of people, I'm experienced with this, having thousands of people after you every single day making up lies, and maybe there's some truth mixed in there too, right? There usually is.
Yeah.
But there's this machine against you every single day, just cranking it out. And his threads are even wilder. The thread they have on him is even wilder than what they have on me.
I know.
It's growing 10 pages
every day.
20 pages a day. Yeah. And so I would argue that could put some stress on your life as well. Right.
I that's the thing. I can't only imagine. I mean, especially even for you, every day, my Pantsu, my Morris, my Vickers, like, they like you hear about it every day, like your fucking truck and the cartels, and you hear about every fucking day, and I can only imagine how that feels, and you hear about it all the time. So no, I don't doubt that gets to you after a while, and that is the shitty part about it. And even when you're just trying to do your own stream, it's not like you can, you shut off the internet and ignore it. Well, like if you
Nick, can't get away from it.
Well, if you shut off the internet though, this is your thing. So it's not like you can, I don't know. You could probably become like the governor of your state down here. Yeah, I think you could.
You said it right. I mean, there's no escaping it. And even when you don't want to talk about it, and again, you mentioned some stuff. I'll be clear, I'm not talking about any of that stuff, and I haven't talked about any of that. I want to say on the record.
Sure.
And I haven't mentioned anybody's name in that regard, etc. But
hold on, Ralph. Let me apologize. I apologize for that, Ralph. Yeah, he has not said anything. I was just using those examples of what people bring up that they try to drive home every day and fuck with you. Whether they feel right, wrong, or indifferent, they're using it to get at you.
Right. And I'll say that it goes back to what I said earlier. There's a lot of stuff I legally can't talk about. And it's unfortunate when, everybody else can talk about it, including, people close to the situation, and it's giving credibility when it's not credible, some things being said, etc. And I can't actually refute it. I can't really, go on the record without getting in trouble. And so it's not like that for Rekieta, as far as I know, on most of this stuff, but it is like every time you get dragged into it. And I've seen him doing his regular stream, saw him doing his regular stream the other day. And, it's all these comments nonstop about his family, about, oh, you drink too much, this and that. And he's just trying to go through an article. I think it was about the Supreme Court or something. Right. And there's no escaping it every single day. I mean, you could see how that would be a problem. Right. And it's been going on for almost a year now, I guess, with him.
She has muted. Sorry. No, I understand that for Nick, and that's where I think Nick has really been able to. And I'm not trying to knock you, Ralph, or make fun of you here, but I think Nick was in a position where he really could kind of control how things were going, and I think I don't know what his deal is, and I get it. I think probably for Nick a little bit of it. Certainly, I'm this way at times. You tend to, like, when something happens, and I've been a very big contrarian most of my life. That's just how I roll. I'm not afraid. Like I, do whatever and I do the other fucking thing just to fuck with people. And I get that. And I think for Nick, that might be part of the issue here is, well, fuck all these people. I'm not going to do what they want or whatever they say just because they're saying it. But I feel like Nick was he's been in such a position where he could direct things in a way. And I'll say for you, what's happened to you as an example of, well, I've already seen what's happened before. So I have some idea on how I could navigate one way works versus another way not working and how do I react and respond to things. And I just feel like Nick has kind of been like, oh, fuck it. And just done whatever, went on his own path, which I don't see why. I feel like there's enough examples on the internet. You can say like, okay, well, I can weave between the landmines a little bit. And I don't think he did that.
Well, you mentioned me, and speaking from experience, there is a point where you can control things. But you're taking fire every single day. People are coming at you with bullshit every single day. And, it's hard not to respond to that stuff. And I know sometimes you shouldn't, or you should take a different path or a different response. But once the snowball, starts rolling downhill, things are out of your hands. I mean, what could he come out and say now besides he was going to hang himself or something that would please some of these people? I mean, it's rabid against him. And I've talked about this. I don't really know. It seems out of proportion. With me, I would say there's more stuff going on for people to seize on or whatever, or make a big deal. But I see Rekieta and they say, oh, there was some fake bitch in his chat, or stuff about his
that's the
life that they don't even know,
comparatively speaking,
right? Yes. Or he's drinking too much or whatever. And I'm thinking, what? Why are they so hell bent on destroying this guy? Now I have a couple theories. A lot of his fan base was built around Kiwi Farms, and then once he had a falling out with Null, and Null starts talking about him weekly or whatever, multiple times per week on his show, that the Kiwi farmers see that as a green light and think they've been betrayed, etc. And that seems to be what's behind a lot of the bloodlust, because I see, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like there's as much there to justify the response that they've given him.
Well, I get what you're saying. Yes, compared to like the crap you've dealt with, this you're like, I wish it was just that bad, probably.
Right? I'm sitting there saying, wow, I wish I could trade places. Yeah. Are you serious?
I'll deal with Mandy every day.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah.
Mandy, that doesn't mean he wants to talk to you. Don't start DMing him.
I mean, it seems minor. I appreciate that. It seems minor in comparison to me and some others, right? And I see stuff I'm going through.
And it is minor relatively compared to what a lot of people are dealing with. But for Nick, where he was starting out at before all this happened, this is a pretty big deal overall. So,
I mean, I think it's. I guess I think people had the wrong impression. As well. Now, maybe you could argue that he gave them that impression or what have you, but I never took Nick Rekieta as, a minister or something like that. Right. And of course I've met him several times. I never was under that impression, that he, I knew he had a good family and all this stuff, but I never, I don't know. It seems like people feel like they were had or something, or they were.
Well, a lot of people do feel that way, and that's where I think that comes down to like, well, what did they reasonably expect, and what were they reasonably given to rely on? And I think that's where people are still trying to work through that. But a lot of people feel like they were. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, were people really, or did people read into him?
Did they just want to see that, right?
Yeah. Did they read into him all this, and did they foist all this upon him? And if there's people we like to see the good in them. We like to see ourselves in them. Or was there some of it Nick was also okay? Yeah, well, I'm working with it too. I think there's a little bit both ways there, but obviously people are going to say that they feel like that they got had, and Nick's going to say, well, I didn't do anything. I did nothing more than, I'm the same person as I've always been. And that's where people, I think, are going to make their decisions. And I think, people are made their decision right now.
Okay, so I'll ask you two questions. First off,
Mhm.
what did you think of him? Did you see him that way? And then second off, if you were giving him advice,
Yeah.
we're here talking about it. What would you tell him to do?
I mean, ultimately, I saw him the way he came across to me was not necessarily like the trad dad thing, but yeah, he was kind of close to that. He was in that vein and was very much like, for where he is compared to now, is like 180 degrees to me. So like what I would tell Nick is, I'd say, you can go back to, I get, right now he's saying, I don't want to go back to what I was doing. I didn't like any of that stuff or whatever. Okay, fine. But what you're doing now isn't working. What you've been doing for lately hasn't really been working. I know you want to sit there and talk about relationships, but nobody wants to talk about that stuff. I mean, there's some people who can talk about those things. I don't think people like that packaging from you. That's like me if I wanted to go talk about another subject. Nobody might give a shit about it. Well, but that's something I really want to do. Well, that's, that nobody's going to want to listen to me. I think he needs to just, I think he just needs to take a moment and like figure out what he really wants to do. I know he kind of goes back and forth, but take a day or two off and just figure out like, what is it you really want to do? How do you want to get there? Because I feel like he's doing a lot of reacting and going back and forth. Okay, well, in trying to jump to both sides and, like, okay, well, now we're doing law stuff. And then, he wants to go back to what it is he wants to do. And that's my biggest thing for him is I just think he needs to take a deep breath and figure out what he wants. Because what he's doing right now, this going back and forth, is clearly not what he wants. And that's going to be more destructive to him than going one way or another, I think. Because if you're trying to do both things, it's going to get worse. And I just want him to stop and take a breath for a second and figure out what he wants to do and just go do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of especially when you do streams all the time, multiple times per week. It can get to where you want to talk about some things that interest you sometimes or whatever that may not interest your core people. And you have to balance that out with, why people came there in the first place. And it's something I've had to think about from time to time, or I want to talk about. Sometimes I'll talk about sports. And, vast majority of my people don't want to hear me talk about sports. So if I turned it into, the kill stream into a sports recap show, that probably wouldn't work. So I understand what you're saying there, but I don't know. It just seems like the bloodlust is so high, and I have it too. That, a lot of people just want to see him fall. And I don't really know
well,
how
that's
you get
just
some of that back.
But that's a lot of people in general, though. People like to see people fall. I mean, I think that's kind of human nature to an extent. So
yeah, fair.
It's not just people rooting against you. It's not just people rooting against Nick. I mean, just in general, he loves, in society in general, he likes seeing people get taken down a peg.
That's true. I think people like a good redemption comeback story too.
Well,
as well,
too. And there's always a way.
Not
back.
that he needs redemption, but that's the term, redemption arc or whatever.
Yeah, comeback story.
And I don't know. I just feel like he's been treated a little unfairly in regards to, it just seems out of proportion. Like I said earlier, with what he's actually accused of doing or whatever.
Sure.
So that's kind of my whole problem with it. And I saw you jumping on him. I don't know. It just seemed a little strange. Do you think you're still cool with him, or have you talked to him? Or
I've reached out. When there's times where I've said like, "Hey, is this okay?" Like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm like the jokes are kind of like just happen, like it's." And he said, "Yeah, it's all good." It's been a little. Like, he said, what he's been going through lately, like the past like week or so. I reached out to him like, "Is there anything I can do? What do you need? Anything like that?" And he hasn't said anything, but also I know he's been very radio silent about it anyway. So I don't know as of late. So,
well,
like I said, whatever it is, I'm hoping it's getting worked out.
Well, that happens too. You silo yourself off when it's one of these things going on, which really, everybody handles it differently, but I've handled it that way too. And it's not really the way to do it. If I had one just minor critique of it, because once you silo yourself off, other people aren't hearing you and other broadcasts and seeing you everywhere, and just the negative messages out there, and you can't really refute it. Just even me being here, I saw some people shocked that I showed up, right? And there's a reason for that, because I haven't been doing many outside appearances ever, well, not ever, but not very much, right? Unless it's a friendly field. I haven't done too many in the last couple of years.
And I'll say, you came on to here and you didn't know how I was going to do this. So
no, I didn't. I said some pretty mean things. So yeah, I didn't know how you would do this.
I was people said to me on the internet, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, sometimes people take these promos, or I'm talking I talk shit about legal mindset. Well, and then I saw video after video about that, and I'm thinking, man, I was just talking shit. I don't even know this guy.
Yeah.
But some people were like, Rob's on the warpath and he's going after this guy. I mean, I guess I technically did, but it was just me, cutting a promo on my show. I didn't go after him, quote unquote, and start pulling up his record or his job history and critique, getting personal like that. I was just talking shit about the guy. So
yeah, well,